There is a question that every single human being has asked, usually in the dark, usually when they are alone. It is the question that built empires, and it is the question that drives us mad. What happens next? We are the only species on Earth that understands the concept of tomorrow. A dog lives in the eternal now. A lion doesn't worry about the stock market or the climate in 10 years. But humans? We are trapped in a prison of time. We are obsessed with the future because the future is the only place where we are going to live. And yet, it is the only place we cannot see. This blindness terrifies us. The uncertainty of the future is the root of all anxiety. So for 50,000 years, we have tried to break the lock. We have tried to hack time. We looked at the guts of sheep. We looked at the flight patterns of birds. We inhaled hallucinogenic gas in caves in Greece. We built supercomputers the size of warehouses to model the weather. We created algorithms that know what you want to buy before you even know you want it. We call it prophecy. We call it astrology. We call it data science. But are they really that different? Are we actually getting better at predicting the future? Or are we just finding new ways to trick ourselves? Today, we are going to peel back the layers of this obsession. We are going to look at the mechanisms of prediction, from the star charts of Babylon to the neural networks of Silicon Valley. We are going to ask why a vague poem written by a French pharmacist in 1555 still makes headlines today. And we are going to find out if it is actually possible to cheat time. Is the future a script that has already been written? Or is it a chaotic storm that no one can map? Welcome to the timeline. Let's see where it ends. Chapter 1. The sky was the first computer, the logic of astrology. Asterisk, asterisk. To understand prediction, we have to stop laughing at astrology. In the modern world, we treat astrology as a joke. It's a meme. It's a personality quiz in a magazine. Oh, you're a Scorpio. You must be intense. Mercury is in retrograde. That's why my Wi-Fi is broken. But if you go back 4,000 years to ancient Babylon, astrology wasn't a game. It was the highest form of technology. It was the first attempt at big data. Think about it from their perspective. You are a farmer in Mesopotamia. Your life depends entirely on cycles you cannot control. The flood of the river, the coming of winter, the plague. But you notice something. You notice that when the cluster of stars we call the Pleiades rises in the east, the rain comes. You notice that when the red star Mars is bright, the king seems to go to war. You start to build a database. You realize the sky is a clock. It is a giant mechanical computer that repeats itself with mathematical precision. This is the birth of the phrase asterisk. As above, so below. The ancients believed that the universe was a single interconnected organism. If the gears turned in the sky, the gears must turn on Earth. Prediction wasn't magic. It was logic. It was pattern recognition. And here is the uncomfortable truth. It worked. Not the love life part, but the survival part. By reading the stars, they could predict the seasons. They could predict the eclipses. They could predict the flooding of the Nile. If you were a priest who could tell the pharaoh exactly when the sun would go black, an eclipse, you weren't just a priest. You were a wizard. You held the keys to the future. The problem began when we tried to scale it up. We got greedy. We thought, if the stars can predict the harvest, surely they can predict my marriage. Surely they can predict the death of the king. We took a system designed for agriculture and applied it to psychology. And this is where the Barnum effect kicks in. In 1948, a psychologist named Bertram Forer gave a personality test to his students. He told them he would analyze their answers and give them a unique, personalized profile. The students read their profiles. They were amazed. They said, "This is 100% accurate. This is exactly who I am." The trick? Forer had given every single student the exact same text. He had copied it from a newspaper horoscope. The text said things like, You have a great need for other people to like and admire you. Asterisk, you have a tendency to be critical of yourself. Asterisk, asterisk, at times you have serious doubts as to whether you have made the right decision. These are statements that are true for everyone, asterisk, but we feel like they are specific to us. This is why astrology survived the invention of the telescope. It doesn't survive because it predicts the future. It survives because it validates the present. It gives us a narrative. It tells us that our confusion, our pain, and our bad luck are not random. They are part of a cosmic plan. And if there is a plan, then maybe, just maybe, we can read the next page. Chapter 2. The Nostradamus Trap, the Psychology of Prophecy. Asterisk, asterisk. If astrology is the database, then prophecy is the poetry. And no name dominates this field like Nostradamus. Michel de Nostradamus, 16th century France. A pharmacist who claimed to see the future. He wrote a book called The Prophecies, filled with 4-line poems, quatrains. Every time a major tragedy happens, 9/11s, the rise of Hitler, the COVID pandemic, people rush to his book. They find a verse. They post it on social media. They say, "Look, he knew. He warned us." But let's actually look at the mechanism of how this works. Let's look at the Hitler prophecy. Nostradamus wrote, asterisk, from the depths of the west of Europe, a young child will be born of poor people. He who by his tongue will seduce a great troop. His fame will increase towards the realm of the east. Asterisk, it sounds chillingly accurate. Hitler was poor. He was from Western Europe. He seduced a troop, Germany, with his tongue, speeches. But wait, Western Europe is huge. Poor people describes 90% of the population. Seducing a crowd is what every politician does. And fame in the East? That could be Napoleon. That could be a pop star. Nostradamus also mentions a name, asterisk Hister. People say, "Oh my God, Hister, that's almost Hitler." Actually, Hister is just the Latin name for the Danube River. Nostradamus was talking about a geographic region, not a person. This is called retrospective determinism. We are terrible at predicting the future forward, but we are geniuses at predicting the future backward. We take the event, 9/11s, and we scan the thousands of vague, metaphorical sentences written by Nostradamus until we find one that fits. We ignore the 9 verses that make no sense, and we fixate on the one that coincidentally lines up. It's like firing a machine gun at a blank wall, and then drawing a target around the bullet holes afterwards and claiming you're a sharpshooter. But why do we do this? Why do we want to believe that a French guy in 1555 knew about the Twin Towers? Because the alternative is too scary. If Nostradamus predicted 9/11s, it means 9/11s was fated. It was written in the stars. It was part of the script. And if it was part of the script, then God, or the universe, is still in control. But if 9/11s was just a random act of chaos, if it could have been prevented, if the future is completely unwritten, that is terrifying. That means we are driving a car at 100 miles per hour with no headlights. Prophecy is a sedative. We use it to calm our anxiety about chaos. We prefer a dark destiny to a blank void. But not all ancient prophecy was vague. Some of it was surprisingly practical. Some of it was actually espionage. Chapter 3. The Delphi Algorithm, the Information Brokers. Asterisk, asterisk. Let's go to ancient Greece, the Oracle of Delphi. This was the Google of the ancient world. If you were a king and you wanted to know if you should invade Sparta, you didn't ask your generals. You went to Delphi. You climbed the mountain. You gave gold to the temple. And you asked the Pythia, the priestess. She would sit on a tripod over a crack in the earth. Vapors, ethylene gas, would rise up. She would enter a trance and scream out a prophecy. It sounds like pure mysticism. But historians have realized something fascinating about Delphi. Delphi wasn't just a temple. It was an intelligence agency. Think about it. Kings from all over the known world sent their ambassadors to Delphi. They sent gifts, they sent news. The harvest in Egypt is bad this year. The Persians are building ships. A king of Thrace is dying. The priests of Delphi were the only people in the world who had the full picture. They were gathering data from everywhere. They were the central node in the information network. So when a king asked, "Will I win the war?" the priests didn't just ask the gods. They looked at their data. They knew the enemy's army was starving because the ambassador from the other side had told them about the famine last week. They packaged this insider trading information as a prophecy. They were the first geopolitical think tank. But they were also smart enough to use the asterisk hedge strategy. Asterisk. There is a famous story of King Croesus. He was the richest man in the world. He asked the oracle, "If I attack Persia, what will happen?" The oracle replied, "Asterisk, if you cross the river, a great empire will be destroyed." Croesus thought, "Awesome. I'm going to destroy Persia." He attacked. He was crushed. His own empire was destroyed. When he complained to the oracle, they said, "We didn't say which empire. You should have asked." This is the genius of the vague prediction. It is always right, as long as you interpret it correctly after the fact. So, for thousands of years, this was the game. We had the vague poetry of the mystics and the secret intelligence of the priests. We relied on intuition, drugs, and stargazing. But then, the 20th century happened. We stopped looking at the stars, and we started looking at the data. We stopped trusting the oracle, and we built the algorithm. We decided to take the magic out of prediction and replace it with math. We thought we had finally solved the problem. We thought we could build a machine that would tell us exactly what happens next. But we were about to learn a very hard lesson. The machine lies too. We traded the entrails of sheep for the entrails of the internet. We built a new oracle. It doesn't live in a temple in Greece. It lives in server farms in Virginia and Ireland. It eats data. It eats your credit card transactions, your GPS location, your Google searches, and your heartbeat from your smartwatch. And for a while, it seemed like this new oracle was perfect. There is a famous story from 2012. The retailer Target hired statisticians to analyze shopping data. They wanted to predict life events so they could send coupons to customers before they even made a purchase. The algorithm noticed a pattern. It noticed that women who suddenly started buying unscented lotion and zinc supplements were almost always in their second trimester of pregnancy. So the computer sent a flyer for baby cribs and diapers to a teenage girl in Minneapolis. Her father saw it. He was furious. He marched into the store and screamed at the manager, "My daughter is in high school. Why are you sending her this trash? Are you trying to encourage her?" A few days later, the father called the manager back to apologize. He said, "I had a talk with my daughter. It turns out there has been some activity in my house I haven't been completely aware of. She's due in August." The algorithm knew she was pregnant before her own father did. This is the power of predictive analytics. It feels like magic. It feels like we have finally cracked the code of human behavior. But there is a trap, a fatal flaw in the Silicon Oracle. The philosopher Nassim Taleb calls it the turkey problem. Imagine you are a turkey. Every day, a farmer comes out to the yard. He feeds you. He gives you water. He protects you from foxes. You are a data scientist turkey. You build a model. Day 1. Fed. Humans are nice. Day 100. Fed. Humans are nice. Day 900. Fed. Humans are nice. Your confidence level is 99.9%. All the historical data proves that the farmer is your benefactor. The graph goes up and up. The future looks bright. Then comes day 1000, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. The farmer comes out. But he isn't bringing corn. He is bringing an axe. In a single second, your model is shattered. Your prediction wasn't just wrong. It was catastrophically wrong. Why? Because the algorithm only knows what has happened. It cannot predict what has never happened. This is why our financial models failed in 2008. This is why our pandemic models failed in 2020. AI is an expert on the past. It is a historian with a supercomputer. But the future is not just a repeat of the past. The future is a place where rules change. We built machines to predict the turkey's dinner, but we forgot to program them for the axe. So, if machines can't do it, and mystics can't do it ... can anyone do it? It turns out the answer is yes. But they aren't who you think they are. Chapter 5. The super forecasters in the early 2000s, the U.S. intelligence community had a crisis. They had failed to predict the fall of the Soviet Union. They had failed to predict 9/11s. They had failed to find weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. They were spending billions of dollars on satellites and spies, and they were still blind. So, an organization called IARPA, the research arm of the spies, launched a tournament. A massive contest to see who could actually predict geopolitical events. They invited thousands of people. Some were intelligence officers with classified clearance. Some were political science professors. Some were economists. And some were just random people. Housewives, retired pharmacists, computer programmers. They asked them specific questions. Will Greece leave the Eurozone by next year? Will North Korea launch a missile in the next 6 months? The results were humiliating for the experts. A researcher named Philip Tetlock analyzed the data. He found that the average expert on TV, the pundits you see on CNN or Fox News, was roughly as accurate as a dart-throwing chimpanzee. They were statistically no better than random guessing. But there was a small group, about 2% of the participants, who were different. They were consistently, terrifyingly accurate. They beat the experts by 30%. They beat the intelligence officers, who had access to secret files. Tetlock called them super forecasters. Who were they? They weren't psychics. They weren't geniuses. They were people who thought differently. Tetlock divided people into 2 categories, based on a line from an ancient Greek poem, the hedgehog and the fox. The hedgehog knows one big thing. The fox knows many little things. The experts were hedgehogs. They had one big theory. The world is driven by capitalism. Or, the world is driven by religion. Every time something happened, they forced it to fit their big theory. If they were wrong, they made excuses. They were stubborn. The super forecasters were foxes. They had no ideology. They were messy. They looked at economics, then psychology, then weather. But the most important trait of a super forecaster was this. They were willing to change their mind. If a hedgehog predicts a war, and the war doesn't happen, he says, "It was a near miss. I was right in principle." If a fox predicts a war, and the war doesn't happen, he says, "I was wrong. My model was flawed. I will update my probability." The foxes treated their beliefs like software updates. They patched them every day. They didn't speak in certainties. It will happen. They spoke in percentages. There is a 65% chance. This proves something profound. Prediction isn't a magical gift bestowed by the gods. It is a cognitive skill. It is the ability to kill your own ego. It is the ability to say, "I don't know, and I was wrong." The best prophets in the world aren't the ones screaming on TV. They are the quiet people who are constantly rewriting their own script. But even the super forecasters hit a wall. They could predict the next 6 months, maybe a year. But if you asked them to predict 10 years out, their accuracy collapsed to 0. Why? Because there is a monster waiting at the end of the timeline. A monster named Chaos. Chapter 6. The Butterfly and the Demon. In 1961, A meteorologist named Edward Lorenz was running a weather simulation on a primitive computer. He wanted to see the forecast again, so he re-entered the numbers from the previous day. But instead of typing the full number 0.506127, he rounded it off. He typed 0.506, a tiny difference. A difference of less than 0.1%. A rounding error. He went to get a coffee. When he came back, the computer had spit out a completely different weather pattern. Lawrence thought the machine was broken. But it wasn't. He had discovered chaos theory. He realized that in a complex system, a tiny change in the beginning leads to a massive change in the end. He called it the butterfly effect. Does the flap of a butterfly's wings in Brazil set off a tornado in Texas? The answer is yes. This is the hard wall of prediction. This is why, no matter how powerful our AI becomes, we will never be able to predict the weather more than 2 weeks in advance. Because to predict the weather perfectly in 2 weeks, you would need to know the position of every single molecule of air today. You would need to know the heat coming off every pavement, the moisture in every leaf, the breath of every person. If you miss one butterfly, the whole prediction collapses. And history? History is just weather made of people. Think about the 20th century. If a driver in Sarajevo hadn't made a wrong turn in 1914, he wouldn't have stalled his car in front of Gavrilo Princip. The Archduke wouldn't have been shot. World War I might not have happened. The Soviet Union wouldn't have formed. The Cold War wouldn't have existed. The Internet might not have been invented. You might not be watching this video. One wrong turn. One butterfly. This destroys the idea of prophecy. Prophecy assumes the future is a movie that has already been filmed, and we just need to fast forward to see the ending. Chaos theory tells us the future is not a movie. It is a game of pool where the balls are constantly multiplying and the table is changing shape. This leads us to the ultimate scientific question: Laplace's demon. Pierre Simon Laplace once suggested that if a superintelligence knew the position and speed of every atom in the universe at this exact moment, it could calculate the entire future. If the universe is just physics, then it should be predictable. But quantum mechanics killed the demon. We learned that at the subatomic level, the universe is random. Particles don't have a set position until you look at them. The universe isn't a clockwork machine. It is a fuzzy, vibrating cloud of probability. The future isn't hidden from us. It literally does not exist yet. The curse of knowing. So we have failed. We failed to read the stars. We failed to find the pattern in the Nostradamus poems. We failed to build an AI that can see the black swan. We failed to beat the butterfly effect. But imagine if we succeeded. Let's play a thought experiment. Imagine I gave you a book right now. This book contains your entire future. Every date is written down. The date you will meet the love of your life. The date you will lose your job. The date your parents will die. The date you will die. Would you read it? Really think about it. If you read it and you saw that you are going to die in a car crash next Tuesday, what would you do? You would stay home. But if you stay home, you change the book. The book becomes a lie. Or, in the Greek tragedy version, you stay home to avoid the car crash, but you trip down the stairs and die anyway. You fulfill the prophecy by trying to avoid it. This is the tragedy of Oedipus. Prediction is a paradox. If you know the future, you have no free will. You are just an actor reciting lines. But if you have free will, the future cannot be known. The uncertainty, the thing that keeps you awake at night, the thing that scares you, is actually the only thing that makes you free. We are not meant to be prophets. We are meant to be voyagers. The super forecasters taught us the best way to live. Don't look for a grand destiny. Don't look for a 100% guarantee. Just look at the facts you have today. Update your beliefs. Be humble. Be flexible. Prepare for the storm, But don't try to control the wind. The future is a blank page, and that is terrifying. But it is also the most beautiful thing in the universe, because it means the pen is still in your hand. So stop looking for the answer. Stop asking, what happens next? Go out there and make it happen.